Hello everyone, this is Tom Jennings, the host of Missing Man, the Vince Welnick Story. If you've been paying attention, episode 5 has been a little bit late in coming, and I actually experienced a keyboard curse of my own. I had a huge liquid spill on the keyboard of my laptop, which made the battery expand, which fried the motherboard, and eventually corrupted the hard drive, which meant that weeks and weeks of editing were lost. Full interviews, of course, have been saved, so I've just had to go back and restart some of the editing process. And I can promise you, episode 5 will hopefully be worth the wait. In the meantime, though, I wanted to present some bonus material. And for fans of Vince Welnick and for fans of Todd Rundgren, this should be pretty cool. There's not a lot of Vince Welnick interviews out there in the first place, but very few that have never seen the light of day. Well, an old friend of mine, Bill Salom, who I met at a Utopia festival back in 1985, messaged me when I started working on this project and said, "Hey, I have an interview with Vince Welnick on Todd Rundgren's tour bus back in 1989 for a publication called the Utopia Times. Would you be interested?" Of course I was interested. Bill sent me a DVD. Took me a little bit to figure out how to get it from the DVD into a digital form so that I could present it as bonus content, but I have done that. Now, before we run this particular interview, I do want to say something about some of the content that's in it. Vince does say some things about Fee Waybill that probably came from a time when he was still feeling a little bit upset about what had happened with the Tubes. I've interviewed Fee 3 times, and I've listened to tons and tons of hours of Fee Waybill interviews and other interviews by Vince Welnick. And this by no means is characteristic of how Vince eventually felt about Fee. They were both very close. I think we all know that sometimes in life we can get mad at other people and say things that we regret later. I just don't want this to cause any kind of problems for anybody or anyone to use it as some kind of fodder for a social media post or anything like that. It's just a guy sitting on a tour bus, probably feeling a little bit frustrated. So, and again, I was thinking about potentially editing that segment out, but I thought for historic purposes, we might as well just leave it in, and you can listen for yourself and realize that Vince was just probably saying things because he was a little upset about how the Tubes eventually ended. And who can blame him? It wasn't a great ending in the mid-'80s. Nevertheless, I'll shut up so you can listen to this amazing, never-before-heard interview with Vince Welnick, conducted by my good friend Bill Salom. Bill, thank you so much for giving this to us and to the rest of the world in the memory of our dear departed friend, keyboardist Vince Welnick.
Well, with Feel It, Perry and I and Todd had already recorded it once with the Tubes.
Of course, yeah.
And I and my wife Lori and Todd had written it a long time ago. So
really?
Yeah, it was
Just the three of you?
No, it was us and who that wrote it or played?
Who wrote it?
Yeah, me and Lori and Todd.
Because, like, you never know on your albums, the Tubes albums, because it just says Tubes, you know?
Yeah, well, that's that was a deal we had where everything was the Tubes, so that way, because Perry's influence on songs was so strong that it didn't feel fair to cut him out of writers' royalties when we were paying back all the albums through publishing royalties, which would have left Perry with nothing but a session pay and very little of anything else.
There's one other group who does that too.
Yeah, well,
that was Utopia.
I think it's only fair. Yeah, well, we kind of run along the same line.
Yeah.
But if the song is covered by another artist named Todd, then it reverts back to the actual writers.
I see.
And that's how it got down to it. Lori and I wrote it on our little ranch a long time ago. And then we presented it to Todd. Oh, we recorded it.
That was in '84, I guess. Was that '84 when Love Bomb was recorded?
Yeah, it was. We had already recorded this. Me and Lori and Roger Steen came in on the arrangement. The Perry's son in Sebastopol, where I live, out that
Sebastopol?
way. Yeah.
It's a town?
It's a little town in Sonoma County. We recorded it 24 track, and it sounded pretty good. But Todd had a better hook on the melody for the chorus. He made a big difference in the chorus, enough to make him a songwriter.
Yeah.
So we didn't actually write it all together. Roy and I worked on it and recorded it and presented it, along with another song that went on the Love Bomb album, "Come As You Are."
Yeah.
That was
that really sounds like the Todd song.
Yeah. Well, see, it was written by Laurie and I again. But we call it "Absolutely True," and it sounded more like Moses Allison. It was like a Jazzmo thing. Gave it over to Todd one time when the Tubes were off for a weekend, and he was in the studio, and I said, "This, I think, is a great song, but obviously this Moses Allison part's the problem here. So, could you fix it?" And he wrote it pretty much about a life experience he was going through.
Oh, you mean he changed the lyrics on top of the arrangement?
Yeah, he revolutionized it, and it became, instead of "Absolutely True," it was "Come As You Are." He left some of the phrasing. Actually, we got more of the phrasing. He kept more things true to form on "Feel It," but that was the difference, that he would make in it. And if it had not been for that, it probably would have never been on the album. I'm sure it would have never been on the album. So, yeah, he changed. I forgot. "Come As You Are." I thought it was quite nice difference.
Oh, it's a beautiful
all
song.
the difference in the world. And he sang it. In fact, I wish we would have left him on the lead vocal track, although he would have never heard of it, But he sang all the background harmonies and lead vocal as a kind of a demo to show us while we were away doing a couple gigs. And the weekend we came back, and I was just, I wept.
Stunned?
Really?
It
was just so great. And the worst part about it was having to take Todd's voice off the lead vocal and replace it with Fee's. Really pissed me off. But we managed to get him. We talked him into leaving as many of his background vocals. Because, it would just been a total waste. We erased all that guy's stuff just for the sake of trying to sound it beautiful the way it was. They only wish we could have left Todd on as lead vocals.
Yeah. Do you still have that, by any chance? Just
yeah. Somebody does. It'd be neat to get it to you, because
we would love it.
Especially just to rub Fee's nose in it too. How much Todd could kick his ass as a singer.
Yeah.
Yeah, in case Fee's got any kind of.
Was that the beginning of the end as far as Fee? Or
yeah, he
started getting.
Well, when we chose Todd Rundgren over a third album with David Foster, that kind of ended it with the record company and with Fee.
Why the record company?
Well, the record company wanted us to go with Foster.
Todd's not commercial enough?
Not that. It's just they figured Foster was more of a guaranteed thing. We had already had the two albums that we did with him did well. In fact, the second album, She's a Beauty, did top 10.
Like they just wanted his name on the album.
Oh, and it would have been all over the album. See, the reason why we didn't want Foster is because he wanted complete control over 50% of the album. That means locking the musicians out, writing the songs outside of the band, and having them performed outside of the band. So it would have been... it was just too much for us to take, And also, money-wise, I don't think it would have worked out. Actually, what happened was when Foster found out it was no go, he gets a hold of Fee and he goes, "Well, we'll prove to him that the real Tubes is just you and me." And he went in and he did that solo album that really went right straight to the toilet. Yeah. Sold all of 20,000 units or something, just an abortion.
Yeah.
And although I liked a couple of songs, but I was just pleased as punch to see that would have been maybe what would have happened to the Tubes. That's what the Tubes album would have sounded like coming from Foster. When Foster was no friend of mine by the time he got done doing two albums. And, the money that he would have thrown into big high-priced studios that gave kickbacks to the producers went into building Cavum Sonai, which was built pretty much with the two bare hands, and Todd's too. He got in there and he goes...
What did you say, Cavum?
Cavum Sonai, Cavumsoni. That is the sound hole. It's Latin for sound hole. And that's the Tube studio, which we built in order to do our Love Bomb album. After we decided to dump Foster, we said, well, we're going to get dumped by the label. It's the last money we're ever going to see. We took the money to Todd, said, can we do it? And, can we spend this much on the studio, and will that leave enough for you? And he said, sure. And we go, okay. I can make a hit record in any damn studio. And he wound up having to pour sand on the floors and wire it together before he could get to use it, but he engineered it. And he's like, we got an acoustic tissue. We built it in our warehouse. And
why didn't you just record it in an existing studio? Why did you?
Because we knew we were going to get the Dumperoo, and
you wanted something.
We wanted to have a recording.
Out of it?
Sure, we wanted to be able to continue recording. And we could not afford to record at the $150 an hour rate that we were used to recording with Foster. But we figured we could build our own, and then we could be bums and it'd still make our music.
$150 an hour?
Oh, we were paying $160 an hour, so some of these studios at Foster would take us. And they were great studios, granted. But when you're doing overdubs and shit like that, you don't need a zillion effects, and you don't need a mammoth studio, and you don't need a $50 an hour producer. And especially you don't need a studio that gives kickbacks to the producer, that he hands back half of the money back to him, so that's why he didn't try to go for a deal at all. I'm sure, the more money he made for them, the more they threw back in his lap. That's the way LA is. They just buy your way through anything. You buy yourself a hit record and buy its way on the station, and then buy it, your way on the TV. We knew we were not going to get any payola breaks, or the company was not going to spring for even an ad for us or anything. And they spent the minimal amount on the video, piece by piece, and threw us out the door to take a hike. And when we went on a tour, we realized that they didn't even do any record store promos,
What about that tour, the one with Utopia?
Well, it thought it was going to be the neatest thing in the world. And I even thought, well, we'll share billing, Utopia would headline wherever they had the strongest market and vice versa. But Todd, being the guy he is, said, no, we'll go on first. And well, the album was out, their album was out. I don't know who fucked them up, but the company didn't promote us in one iota. We got to town, a lot of people didn't even know there was a gig happening. So it didn't...
I remember how angry Todd was about the way you...
Well, he said it, I think he...
Was it RCA or Capitol?
Capital. I don't think... He said that he would probably not ever produce for them. Yeah, for that label because of how, whatever,
the way they
fucking we got. Yeah, because, there's a lot of... He has points on that album. There's a vested interest, and it doesn't look good for him if it doesn't sell, but how can it sell if... it wasn't in a lot of the stores. We would get to the town we're playing in, and not only was there not a record store promo, the records weren't in stock the day of the concert. It almost seems like they tried to fuck us intentionally, although I think they just dropped all involvement and said, let's not put out another set more on the guys. And
they were probably pretty upset when you gave them the album. You said, this is Love Bomb. This is our.
Well, they were even upset before the album.
Oh, really?
So
you were in a no-win situation.
Yeah, we didn't disappoint them any worse when we handed them the album. In fact, they heard a couple of songs on there, I guess, that they thought. But they were already disappointed. They had dumped us before we even finished the album. We knew it. In fact, we knew we were going to do it in our own studio. We were definitely...
Is it hard to have this kind of creative, artistic point of view while you're being fucked over at the same time?
Well, a lot of it isn't. I can't say we completely fucked us over. A lot of it is business. We had an option for their next album, for the Tubes. They had the option to drop us before each record. But if they were to have us do another record, they were gonna have to dump $450,000 on us. And as much as they lost already, they're not going to throw another $500,000. So you gotta say a lot of it was not personal. But they fucked us, and they fucked themselves. Of course, they use it for tax write-off, and we caused the Utopia. It was one of the reasons why Utopia and the Tubes disbanded. Well, Utopia disbanded altogether, and he quit the Tubes, and they all decided to do this on that very tour.
So do you think
really
record companies can purposely screw over the people that they sign in order for tax write-offs? You know, that you might have been a victim just for some kind of tax scheme or something?
Well, just
like
ironic. Every time we sign to a label, we get dumped at the end of 5 years, or before 5 years, and if they don't turn it around to a profit, by then they have to pay tax. So it seems like one of those 5-year plan write-off guys. But yeah, all they have to do to fuck you over is really nothing. And when they decide your time's up, nothing is what they do, and they fuck you over that way. Yeah, there's a lot of hype and stuff that goes into just a lot of money that goes into just making people aware that you're coming to town, or getting an ad or a publicity company to make sure that when you do play somewhere, it's in the papers, you know, and in the entertainment section. All these little things that bands don't have time to do themselves, and if they go hire somebody to do that, then who's gonna?
Is there, well, let's go
we're
back
way
to
off.
remote control. How did you go about getting Todd for that one? Was that a matter of, we've got really, that was a quantum leap as far as recording and songwriting.
Who would we have before that?
I didn't recognize the guy's name. I was looking at the album tonight, and the one before that was Al Cooper.
Yeah, Al Cooper.
And
I guess
who is a name?
Well, there was one guy that we had a real bad experience with that wound up not even finishing the project with us, and I think that was the guy before Todd. And we were definitely looking for somebody that...
But there was just a huge difference between the 3 albums before Remote Control and Remote Control. I mean, a tremendous leap, and I'm just wondering...
Oh, now I can think of why.
It was Todd that did you pursue him because we've got this strong material, or was he available at the right time, kind of thing, or both? Or?
He was probably available at the right time when we also pursued him. We didn't want a producer that just was an engineer. We wanted a hands-on musician, because a lot of our songs were fragments and just ideas. And as good as they were, there weren't too many complete trains of thoughts. So that was probably the one album where we were rushed into doing another album, and we had been tapped out, of our material. We like to take a long time putting it all together, and at this point in the time when they said, record, boys, we weren't ready. And then Todd has this knack for being able to just immediately come up with the idea.
You mean to, fix something or put it all together?
Put it all together, mainly. For instance, with arrangement, some of our music was more together than our lyrics were back then. The song ideas were there, but he would arrange his song ideas and put surgery on them. And when it got to the lyrics, there were a couple of songs we recorded just an instrumental track. We didn't even know what the lyrics were going to be, or even the melody, or hardly anything. We just knew the music was there, and that part seemed okay. And Todd came up with the concept of having a concept album and having it about TV, because there were some mentions about TV in there.
Sure.
He thought about he thought about making it more a conceptual idea.
Anything to do with the name of the tubes, as in the boob tube or anything like that?
Yeah, being visual, and but that was basically his idea. And then when we go into the studio and the track was done, we're trying to figure out what the song was about and the melody and the lyrics. We'd all be sitting down there and with our tablets, and we'd run it by a few times. And somebody come up with one line, or everybody I'd sit there and draw a blank most of the time. And or you just throw out your ideas, and when you come around to Todd's turn,
hello,
he would...
I need to get right behind you.
No problem. You want me to get up?
Yeah, just a second. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm so painful.
So when it became Todd's turn to speak, he would just run the track and sing the idea to it. It was like he had a handle on that situation, and he came up with a lot of the titles. He co-wrote on all the songs. That song,
seems like he's an 8.
Love's a Mystery, I wrote. That was called Now Is Forever, and I wrote with the help of Bill Spooner. But I wrote all the music, and we tore the whole song back down again, and then Todd came in and sat at the piano, and in about 20 minutes it became Love's Mystery, and with that arrangement, musical arrangement. That was really neat, you know. Just instant ballad, you know. Well, we needed that. That's why we pursued it, is we needed somebody to work with the music, because we got rushed in the studio. And
it seems like he becomes an eighth member when he's the producer.
yeah, well, he's the easiest to work with, and, well, at least as far as I'm concerned, of any producer. And I liked Al Cooper a lot, too, but I have to say that I think Todd is much more brilliant.
Plus, I
Al
think
was
you
kind of
share
yeah.
more common ground with Todd.
Yeah, that's true too. I think Al was more of a, well, he was just a different guy. I don't want to say more of what, but he was different. But he was really neat. He taught me to play Hammond organ, like he used
Super
to play.
Session?
No, like he used to play on the Bob Dylan albums.
Uh-huh.
You know, he showed me the stop settings, and when he was cool, he played guitar a little bit on that record, but no, Todd was more happening with our music. I was really pleased to go out and tour with Utopia and the Tubes.
Yeah.
It was just too bad that it was the demise of both bands. Well,
Right,
it was
simultaneously.
well, yeah, they had talked about disbanding for obvious reasons, you know, the money and the lack of show. And Fee was bitching through the whole thing and moaning, thought he was going to quit because the money was no good. And he figures his ass was getting too saggy and he couldn't cut it anymore visually. So.
Yeah. So you guys, well, once you know that Todd's going to be a producer, you guys must be elated because at the very least you're going to be putting out an excellent record.
Right. Yeah, I always look forward to doing albums with him. Unfortunately, unless we get a big major record deal, I don't see that time coming for the Tubes because his fee is mighty, and if you're not on a 530-story building now, it's hard to get a hold of Todd. But I could see collaborating on songs with him. I wish I was off the road right now because he still says he's maybe going to write a couple tunes for his next album, and I sure as hell wish I could be there, as I have a million musical ideas. But he seems to sum up what I feel musically into words. He can articulate it in the words really well. Stuff that I didn't even know I felt. You know.
It's just in his genes or something. He just comes right out of him.
In his jeans and his socks, everything.
Jeans as in G-E-N.
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, okay.
No, he's got a click way down to his tennies. He's got this groove.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great because I was never one with words, and actually I've learned a lot about trying to make something meaningful and how to say it and articulate. I was always had a problem with that. You know, in real life, even at least in all songs.
Well, it sounds like he changed your lyrics.
Well, he did. Oh,
Yeah.
sure. But he even he was one of the reasons why I wrote lyrics, or that now I can write lyrics.
Oh, really?
Why before I wrote lyrics because I had to have them. Now I write them because they should be there. You know, I want to keep a few more of them.
Yeah.
Now and then I learned that from Todd. But I would feel a certain way when I would play music, and he seems to be. He can tell a story about it, and it'll emote the same feeling I'm feeling. Almost my story was just a feeling, you know. Maybe I had it since I was a kid, not just being moody or whatever. But he seemed to maybe sum up in the words what I was thinking about when I wrote some music. And when you're stuck for a part, you know, musically, he's a great collaborator. Oh yeah, he instantly.
How about side 2 of Love Bomb? It's an extraordinary piece of work. Was that his idea to, did you have lots of snippets of songs and it just kind of made sense to piece them together, or was that his idea?
Well, I think it might have been Prairie and Mike's idea to try to run it as a whole dance side.
Did Abbey, the second side of Abbey Road have anything to do with
No,
that?
not at all.
Okay. Well, because the reason I say, well, you know why I'm saying that. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
but
the
now that
only
you
side
mention
I
it,
can
it
think
runs
of
concurrent.
that runs. You never
Yeah,
saw
now
it
that you
before?
mention it, I'm familiar with what you're talking about.
Okay.
No, the reason why we ran ours straight through was for the tempo. If you'll notice, every song on that side is the same tempo speed, even though the rhythms change a little bit. It is the same tempo speed, so one could get out on the dance floor and
Especially for say, hey.
yeah, and work with it for the whole side, and it'd be a great New York, long play disco hit, which I think had.
I never thought of it as that.
Well, I think that's
I thought
why
of it as like
I
a
probably
collage.
would say that Mikey had the concept of doing that as a dance side.
Mm-hmm.
But then how it all went together was everybody's doing so. But ultimately, Todd, being the producer, pasted in that ending collage, and he started by hearing all the parts and working on them, and then him and I got his Fairlight computer, and I kind of show him how the part went or what key it was in, and he would type it in to where there was a recognizable beat and a recognizable portion of music sequence.
What is it
altogether.
you're typing in? The notes?
The
score?
notes to what the score is and what instrument is played on.
Uh-huh.
And so after about 3 days, it took a long time to do it because you had to, for instance, a chord had to be written 3 times over, only one at a time.
Uh-huh.
So you'd write the bass line of the chord, the lowest notes. Then
Does
you'd
it
write
take a
the middle
computer
third.
whiz like Todd to be able to pull something like this off?
Well, I didn't know shit about a Fairlight when
Ah.
I knew about notes and note values, and I knew the songs and what keys they were in. But he was wielder of the light pin, and he knew how to get to what he needed, and he knew how to set it up and put it the beat and a little bit of. We put in some bass lines that were so interesting that we wound up keeping them. They were off the Fairlight. They were sequence bass, like a Night People at the end. That would be we play. Todd would just play a simple bass line, or I'd play a simple bass line, and we'd run by it again, and then he'd punch in a little.
This is
here,
a keyboard
and there's a
interfaced
playback
with a computer?
with a computer, yeah.
Okay.
Fairlight computer.
I've seen them, but I don't really know what one
Yeah,
is.
he had one. I guess he was endorsed. He got one.
Right,
by
he
the
used to work for the company.
Yeah, and so it would play the song back, and while the chords are going by, we'd throw in the space part, and sometimes it'd get really good, because if you have it repeat, you can hear the bass part real simply, and then you add a little bit of funk to it, a stab here, a stab there, then it'll repeat that again, you go, ooh, that's kind of neat, and then you go, and a little twitch or glitch there. Maybe run it by 4 times, and then you're playing something that even the most advanced Negro would find, real challenging. And we keep some of that. But anyway, it took about 3 days, I think, to get it all.
The whole album, or just that one
just
side?
To get that one side in a recognizable fashion in order of how it goes. And then the rest was just a matter of overdubbing.
How do you
removing
connect those, splice them together? Were
Well,
they
you never
played
splice.
continuously?
It wasn't ever on tape. See, before we even went to tape, this was all put into his computer, and it was stored on disc.
So that's how they blended one
Yeah,
with
so
another.
it was, that part was kind of hit. And if it fucked up in any way or so, he could go back and look at the score and remove the bad measure or correct the time values.
Makes me wonder how the Beatles did it on Abbey Road then, with their
I don't think,
back to him.
no, I think they just spliced.
Yeah, well, I guess they would have to with it.
Because they were all, that sounded to me like they were all different songs and
Separate
recorded.
songs.
Yeah, they would segue or just splice in, but
Uh-huh.
this had a tempo speed, and since the tempo speed was going to be constant, there was a lot of opportunities to have sequencing and hip stuff that the computer, like sequencing and stuff that Mikey Cotton was happening with.
Speaking of which, what about For a Song? The sound effects are incredible on that with that beautiful melody.
Yeah, that was whenever we would say For a Song, Todd would insert a piece off of a classic
Really?
album, or no, this is kind of it would actually be a song off a record or something, like a symphony or
a sample. We're talking about for a song.
For a song, those little blips of songs were sampled off of records, and then just poked in on the tape as the track would go by.
That, so?
For a song,
Yeah.
it was me and Mikey, and I don't know if Todd has his name.
He's got a credit in there.
For a song?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a lot more credit, he had a lot to do with all the songs, but he only took credit on the ones where he really, came up with a substantial part. And so, yeah, that would have been one that me and Mikey wrote that he saved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to do that song for some time, and Todd made it work.
Did you write that melody?
What,
For a song? Or was it just
no, it was
collaborative?
It was Mike wrote the original melody. I wrote mostly the music for that one, and Mike wrote the original melody, and then Todd changed it quite a bit. But no, that was mainly Mikey inspired song. It was artistic.
Do you remember Todd coming up with Mimi Gets Mad for the album, and it got rejected?
Well, yeah, but I didn't get to hear it.
Really?
I don't even know if I heard it before it got rejected. I only heard it a couple times, and yeah, something he did in his spare time. It went past me. I missed it.
He told me that he had written it for you guys.
Yeah, it was about our secretary.
Right. Does she get mad?
No, that's the funny thing. I guess, but she used to get mad at Todd.
Maybe?
Excuse me, 1 second.
Sure.
Yes.
We've got about 12 to 15 minutes. We're going to 25 after.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, just 1 second. Minute version
Just
up.
whenever you
No,
want.
go ahead. You want to run through some
Okay.
you questions?
Yeah. Well, Todd mentioned in a magazine article, he was talking about production, and he mentioned the fact that he gets criticized that his productions sound too much like they're too Todd, almost like it's one of his soul albums or something. And he mentioned Remote Control as being an example of that he got criticized for it being too Todd, and like.
Well, that was
how
only.
can you expect Todd to not be Todd, kind of thing?
Well, it's as much the Tube's fault, if it's a fault at all. I don't think it's a fault, period. But if the Tubes had all their material together, Todd wouldn't have had to inflict so much Todd onto the music to get it finished. I mean, if there's so much left undone and Todd has to do it, he can't try to sound like Fee, and why would he even want to?
Right.
So he did it. But yeah, well, we knew it was going to be, they were going to say that it was be too Todd. We said, what the fuck? I mean, we
like Todd.
We like the way it's coming off, and if I had a choice between it to be Todd or somebody else, kind of like what Todd's doing here. So, but if it's too Todd, it's too fucking bad. That's the guy that we worked with, and we wanted Todd. We didn't want David.
Yeah. Although those were the ones that were really commercially.
But those you can't even say are two David. David just steals from everybody, Foster. But they were two Tubes by any means. I mean, he'd throw me out of the studio, have me sit in the car, I'd play half my keyboard parts, then he'd take my song to Maurice White, completely change it, like tipping my tongue, change it around, it still would only go to number 50. And then he would not even let us play on our own songs, and then where's that at?
So, like, what's the mood in the studio, the morale with Todd's new album?
Oh, it's great.
I mean, it's been so long for us Todd fans.
So I'll leave it on this question here, because that's a good one. Most of the takes are the inspired takes. We do it very professionally. You know, everybody lines up and rehearse separate. We get the vocals down in a separate room. The band works together. Rhythm section works together. The horn section works together. Then we all come in and we start putting it together. And then there's the logistics of 21 sets of headphone mixes and food and catering and all of that goes into and everybody breaking a string or some guy not in tune. And when we finally get it together, we do a bunch of takes, but the ones we've been keeping is when Todd feels like we got it, we'll take a break and then go for the inspired take, the last one. That's like, this is the end of your life, this is the last song, and then you're going to die. And those are the ones I think you're going to hear on the next album, or maybe it's like, he's playing it like it's his
The
last
inspired
words.
ones?
Oh yeah, like the ones like this is your last, each song is your dying act.